The mining drill bit into the asteroid's surface with a steady rhythm that Ji-won had grown used to over the past 3 months. He stood in the control center of their small mining station, watching the numbers scroll across his screen. The asteroid they called home was nothing special, just another rock floating in space with enough precious metals to make the trip worthwhile. "Captain, we're hitting good ore down here." Minho's voice crackled through the comm from the drilling platform. "Should have this section cleared by tomorrow." Ji-won nodded even though Minho couldn't see him. "Good work. Keep it steady." His crew was small but reliable. Minho handled all the engineering work and could fix anything that broke. Hana served as their medic and also helped with the lighter mining tasks. Do-hyun managed their communications and kept track of their supplies. They had been working together for 2 years now, and Ji-won trusted each of them with his life. The work was hard and dangerous, but it paid well. Most people back on Earth thought asteroid miners were crazy for spending months in the cold emptiness of space, but Ji-won liked the quiet and the freedom. Out here, they answered to no one except themselves and the mining company that hired them. "Captain," Do-hyun called from his station near the back wall. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Ji-won walked over to look at Do-hyun's screen. A blinking red dot showed something large moving toward their asteroid. "What is it?" "Not sure. It's big, maybe the size of a small ship, but the signature is weird. Not like anything I've seen before." "Could be a company ship checking on us," Ji-won said, but he felt uneasy. They weren't expecting any visitors for another month. The red dot on the screen suddenly changed direction. Instead of moving toward their station, it curved around and headed for the far side of the asteroid. "It's going down," Do-hyun said, his voice tight with worry. "Fast. Too fast." They watched the dot disappear behind the asteroid's bulk. A few seconds later, their station shook slightly. "That was an impact," Minho said over the comm. "Whatever it was just crashed." Ji-won stared at the screen where the dot had vanished. Standard mining protocol said they should report the crash and wait for instructions from the company. But that could take days, and if someone was hurt, they might not have days. "Minho, Hana, get back to the station. We're going to check it out." "Captain," Do-hyun said carefully, "maybe we should call this in first." "We will, after we know what we're dealing with." 20 minutes later, all 4 of them were suited up and riding the mining crawler across the asteroid's rocky surface. The small vehicle bounced and lurched over the uneven ground, but it was built for this kind of work. The crash site was easy to find. A long gouge in the asteroid's surface led to a strange ship unlike anything Ji-won had ever seen. Instead of metal and straight lines, it looked almost alive. The hull was smooth and curved, like it had been grown rather than built. Strange fluids leaked from cracks in its surface. "What kind of ship is that?" Hana whispered through the comm. "I don't know," Ji-won said, "but someone might be alive in there." They approached carefully. The ship's hull had several large holes torn in it, and they could see inside. The interior was just as strange as the outside. No seats or control panels that they could recognize. Just organic-looking chambers and tubes. "The atmosphere inside is toxic," Minho reported, checking his scanner. "Whatever they breathe, it's not good for us." As they got closer, Ji-won could see movement inside the ship. Not people, but something else. In several transparent containers, small creatures floated in some kind of liquid. Most of the containers were broken. Their contents spilled out onto the ship's floor. "Are those aliens?" Do-hyun asked. Ji-won counted the containers. 12 were broken and empty. 3 were still intact. And inside each one was a small, translucent creature about the size of a human baby. They had multiple thin arms and legs, and their skin glowed with soft, changing colors. "They're alive," Hana said. "The 3 in the working containers." But barely. Warning lights flashed inside the ship. Whatever powered the life support systems was failing. "The containers won't last much longer," Minho said, studying his readings. "Maybe 10 minutes." Ji-won looked at the dying ship and the 3 small aliens. They were someone's children, he realized. Someone's babies, and they were going to die if he did nothing. "Can we move the containers?" he asked. "Too risky," Minho said. "They're connected to the ship's systems. Try to move them and we might kill them faster." More warning lights began flashing. Deep inside the ship, something started making a high-pitched whining sound. "The power core is unstable," Minho said, his voice suddenly urgent. "If it explodes, it'll take out everything within 100 meters. How long do we have?" 5 minutes. Maybe less. Ji-won stared at the 3 small aliens floating in their containers. They seemed so peaceful, unaware that death was coming for them. One of them moved slightly and its skin flashed with yellow and blue patterns. "We need to get them out of there," he said. "Captain, there's no way," Hana protested. "The atmosphere is toxic. You'd be dead in minutes without a suit, and the suits won't fit through those openings." Jiwon was already moving toward the ship. "Then I'll have to do it without a suit." "Jiwon, no." Hana grabbed his arm. "You'll die." He looked at his crew, his friends. They were scared for him, and they were right to be. Going into that ship without protection would probably kill him. But he thought about the 3 small aliens and how someone was probably looking for them, worrying about them. "Maybe," he said, "but they'll definitely die if I do nothing." He pulled free from Hana's grip and started removing his helmet. "Captain, please," Do-hyun begged. "If I don't make it out, get back to the station and report everything," Jiwon said. He dropped his helmet and took a deep breath of clean air from his suit's small reserve tank. Then he ran toward the ship. The toxic atmosphere hit him like a punch to the chest. His lungs burned instantly and his eyes started watering. But he pushed forward, following the weak light from the containers. The first alien was easy to reach. Jiwon found the container's manual release and opened it. Thick, warm liquid poured out, and the small creature fell into his arms. It was heavier than it looked and warm against his chest. His lungs felt like they were on fire as he carried the first alien outside to where Hana waited with an emergency biobag. He shoved the creature inside and sealed it, then turned back to the ship. 2 more, he gasped, and ran back into the toxic air. The second alien was deeper in the ship. Jiwon's vision was starting to blur, and every breath felt like swallowing acid. But he found the container and got it open. This alien was smaller than the first, and it made soft clicking sounds as he carried it out. By the time he went back for the third alien, Jiwon could barely see. His legs felt weak and there was blood in his mouth. The whining sound from the ship's core was getting louder and higher. The last container was in the deepest part of the ship. Jiwon stumbled through the organic corridors, following the glow from the alien's skin. When he found it, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the release. The alien fell into his arms just as the ship's lights went out. Emergency power was gone. In the darkness, Jiwon stumbled toward where he thought the exit was. His chest felt like it was full of broken glass. He made it 3 steps outside the ship before his legs gave out. The last thing he saw was Minho running toward him as the ship exploded behind them in a ball of green fire. Jiwon woke up to the steady beeping of medical machines. His throat felt like someone had poured sand down it, and every breath hurt. The ceiling above him was the familiar gray metal of the mining station's medical bay. "He's awake," Hana's voice said from somewhere nearby. Jiwon tried to speak, but only a rough whisper came out. "The aliens?" "They're alive," Hana said quickly. "All 3 of them. Thanks to you." She helped him sit up slowly. His chest ached with every movement and his head felt fuzzy. "How long was I out?" 2 weeks. The toxic gases from that ship did serious damage to your lungs. You nearly died 3 times. Hana's voice was tight with worry. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about those babies," Jiwon said. His voice was getting a little stronger. "They needed help. Well, they got it. Come on, let me show you." Hana helped him into a wheelchair and pushed him through the station corridors. They stopped at what used to be the main storage room. Now it looked like a strange laboratory, filled with bubbling tanks and blinking machines. "Minho and I built this in the first week," Hana explained. "We had to guess what they needed to survive, but it seems to be working." The 3 aliens floated in separate tanks filled with clear liquid. They were bigger now, about the size of human toddlers. Their skin still glowed with soft colors, and they had grown what looked like tiny wings. "They've been growing fast," said a new voice. Jiwon turned to see a woman he didn't recognize. She was about 30, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. "This is Yeji," Hana said. "She's a xenobiologist. Came in on the supply ship a week ago." "Lucky timing," Yeji said, shaking Jiwon's hand. "These creatures are incredible. I've never seen anything like them." "What can you tell me about them?" Jiwon asked. Yeji pulled up a chair next to his wheelchair. "They're definitely intelligent. Even at this stage of development, their brain activity is off the charts. They seem to recognize you, actually." As if responding to her words, the 3 aliens turned toward Jiwon. Their skin patterns changed to bright blues and greens, pulsing in sync with each other. "See? They know you're here," Yeji smiled. "I think they remember what you did for them." Jiwon watched the small aliens floating peacefully in their tanks. They looked so delicate, so innocent. "Do we know where they came from?" The ship's debris didn't tell us much, Minho said, walking into the room. But the technology was incredibly advanced. Biological computers, living hull material. Whoever built it is way ahead of us. That's what worries me, Do-hyun said from the doorway. I've been monitoring communications. The colonial administration has been asking questions about our unusual bio-readings picked up by the orbital sensors. Ji-won felt a chill that had nothing to do with his injuries. The colonial administration had strict rules about first contact with alien species. If they found out about the three creatures, they would take them away for military research. What kind of questions? He asked. They want to know if we've found any unusual organic materials. They're sending an inspector to check on us. Do-hyun looked worried. He'll be here tomorrow. We can't let them take these babies, Ji-won said firmly. Captain, Hana said gently. These aren't pets. They're alien life forms. There are protocols for this kind of thing. Protocols that would put them in a lab somewhere, being poked and prodded by scientists who see them as specimens instead of living beings. Ji-won shot back. Yeji cleared her throat. Actually, Captain, there might be another issue. Based on their growth rate and development patterns, I think these aren't just any aliens. The way they're developing, the complexity of their biology. I think they might be from a royal or ruling class. What makes you say that? Minho asked. Look at them. Yeji pointed to the tanks. Perfect symmetry, advanced neural development, specialized organs I can't even identify yet. In most intelligent species, this level of biological sophistication usually indicates high social status. Ji-won stared at the three small aliens. If Yeji was right, they had accidentally become involved in something much bigger than a simple rescue. We need to hide them, he said. Where? Do-hyun asked. The inspector will scan the entire station. The old mining shaft in Section C, Minho suggested. It's deep enough to block most scans, and we could rig a temporary life support system. They spent the rest of the day carefully moving the aliens and their equipment to the abandoned mining tunnel. It was cramped and dark, but it would have to do. Ji-won sat in his wheelchair next to the tanks, watching the aliens sleep. Their skin patterns had changed to soft purples and silvers. You three are causing a lot of trouble, he whispered to them. I hope your parents are looking for you. The next morning, Inspector Tae-hyun arrived on a fast military transport. He was a thin, nervous man in an expensive suit who clearly didn't like being on a dirty mining station. Captain Ji-won, he said, reading from a datapad. I'm here to investigate some unusual energy readings detected by our monitoring satellites. Just regular mining operations, Ji-won said. He was still in the wheelchair, which made him look harmless. Nothing unusual here. Tae-hyun spent 2 hours scanning the station with various devices. He found nothing suspicious in the main areas, which seemed to make him more frustrated rather than relieved. There's definitely something here, he muttered, staring at his scanner. The biological residue readings are off the charts. Could be from the food processing systems, Hana suggested. We've had some contamination issues lately. Tae-hyun wasn't buying it. He kept scanning, moving deeper into the station. Ji-won's heart raced as the inspector got closer to Section C. Captain, Do-hyun whispered, we've got a problem. On the communication screen, dozens of red dots had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. Ships, big ones. What is that? Tae-hyun demanded, seeing the display. Before anyone could answer, the lights in the station flickered. Then every piece of electronic equipment started beeping and flashing warning signals. They're jamming our systems, Do-hyun said, his face pale. Outside the station's viewports, space began to shimmer. Huge shapes materialized out of nothing. Ships unlike anything in human space. They looked like the crashed vessel, but massive. Living starships with flowing organic curves and surfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Dear God, Tae-hyun whispered. The largest ship positioned itself directly in front of the station. It was easily 10 times bigger than anything in the human fleet, and its hull writhed with patterns of light that seemed almost like writing. Captain, Do-hyun's voice was shaky. They're sending some kind of signal. It's not radio or lasercom, it's something else entirely. The signal came through as a series of musical tones that somehow conveyed meaning directly into their minds. The message was simple and clear. Return our young. Ji-won looked at his crew, then at Inspector Tae-hyun, who seemed to be in shock. The 3 alien babies they had saved weren't just intelligent creatures. They were the children of whoever owned this massive fleet. I think, Ji-won said quietly, we need to have a conversation. In Section C, the three aliens in their tanks had begun glowing brighter than ever before. Their skin patterns had changed to rapid, excited flashes of gold and white. They knew their family had come for them. The alien ship that docked with their station was smaller than the massive vessels waiting in space, but it still made their mining platform look like a toy. When the airlock opened, Ji-won wasn't sure what to expect. What emerged made Inspector Tae-hyun take 3 steps backward and reach for his sidearm. The creature that entered was clearly the leader. She stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 graceful arms and legs that seemed too delicate to support her height. Her skin was a deep blue-green that shifted to silver in the station's light, and translucent wings folded against her back. Most striking was the crown-like structure that grew from her head, not metal or jewel but living bone that pulsed with soft light. Behind her came 6 smaller beings that looked like warriors. They carried no visible weapons, but their forearms ended in sharp claw-like fingers, and their movements had the fluid grace of predators. "I am Queen Velnara of the Veltari Collective," the tall being said. Her voice came from a small device on her chest that translated her words into perfect Korean. "I have come for my daughters." Ji-won struggled to his feet from his wheelchair. His legs were shaky, but he managed to stand. "Your Majesty, I'm Captain Ji-won. Your daughters are safe." Queen Velnara's large, compound eyes focused on him. They were beautiful and alien, like looking into a galaxy of stars. "You are the one who entered the poison ship." "Yes, ma'am. Show me my children." Ji-won led the way to Section C, followed by his crew, the aliens, and a very nervous Inspector Tae-hyun. When they reached the hidden tanks, Queen Velnara made a sound like wind chimes mixed with whale song. The 3 young aliens responded immediately. Their skin patterns exploded with bright colors, and they pressed against the sides of their tanks as if trying to reach their mother. "Zelnira." "Morkala Vexanda," Queen Velnara whispered, touching each tank gently with one of her 4 hands. "My precious daughters." She turned to study the makeshift life support system that Minho and Hana had built. "This is crude but effective. You have kept them alive when our own technology failed." "We did our best," Hana said. "We weren't sure what they needed." "You did more than your best," Queen Velnara said. "You saved royal children of the Veltari." "This is unprecedented." One of the warrior aliens stepped forward and spoke in rapid clicking sounds. Queen Velnara nodded and turned back to Ji-won. "Commander Kextal informs me that analysis of our ship's remains shows the core explosion would have killed my daughters within moments of your arrival. You could not have known this when you chose to act." "I knew they needed help," Ji-won said simply. "That was enough." Queen Velnara stared at him for a long moment. "In all our centuries of space travel, we have encountered 847 different intelligent species. Not one has ever risked their life for Veltari young. Most flee when they see us. Why?" Yeji asked, then immediately looked like she regretted speaking. "Because we are conquerors," Queen Velnara said matter-of-factly. "For 1,000 years, the Veltari have expanded across the galaxy, taking what we needed and destroying those who opposed us. We are not loved." Inspector Tae-hyun finally found his voice. "Your Majesty, I represent the colonial administration of Earth. We need to discuss the protocols for this contact." Queen Velnara looked at him like he was an interesting insect. "You speak of protocols to one who has ruled star systems since before your species left their birth world. Nevertheless, there are procedures that must be followed," Tae-hyun insisted, though his voice was shaking. "Captain Ji-won is a human citizen, and these aliens were found in human space." "These aliens," Queen Velnara said, and her voice carried a dangerous edge, "are my daughters. And this human has performed Kethvol." "What's that?" Ji-won asked. Queen Velnara turned back to him. "It means life debt for saving the young. In our culture, when someone risks their life to save Veltari children, they become Kethvolan, protector bound to our family. I don't understand. You are now claimed by the royal house of Velnara. You will come with us to our homeworld, where you will be honored and given a place in our court as guardian of my daughters." The room fell silent except for the humming of the life support machines. "That's very generous," Ji-won said carefully, "but I have responsibilities here." "My crew, my work?" Queen Velnara tilted her head, clearly puzzled. "You refuse royal adoption? This is not possible. The Kethvol bond cannot be denied." "Your Majesty," Inspector Tae-hyun stepped forward again. "I cannot allow you to simply take a human citizen." This would be considered kidnapping under our laws. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The warrior aliens shifted position, and Queen Velnara's crown structure pulsed with angry red light. You threaten the Queen of the Veltari. Commander Kextel's translator made his voice sound like grinding metal. I'm not threatening anyone, Taehyun said, but he backed up anyway. I'm just explaining our position. Your position, Queen Velnara said, is that of insects addressing a god. You have no understanding of what this human has done. She gestured to her daughters in their tanks. These are not ordinary Veltari children. They are direct heirs to the collective throne. Princess Zelnira will one day rule the Andromeda sector. Princess Morkala commands our biological research fleets. Princess Vexanda leads our deep space exploration forces. They're just babies, Hana said softly. They are in their larval stage, yes, but they possess the genetic memories of their royal lineage. They know who saved them, and they will remember for the next 1,000 years of their lives. Queen Velnara moved closer to Jiwon. Do you comprehend what you have done? You have not simply saved 3 lives. You have preserved the future leadership of the most powerful spacefaring civilization in this galaxy. I just saw 3 kids who needed help. Jiwon said, exactly. Queen Velnara's voice became softer. You saw children in danger, and you acted without thought for yourself. This is why you must come with us. This courage, this selfless instinct, it is what our people have lost through centuries of selective breeding for intelligence and strength. She turned to address the whole group. We Veltari have become perfect in many ways. We are stronger, smarter, and more advanced than most species. But we have bred out the ability to sacrifice for others. Our lower castes follow orders. Our upper castes think only of strategy and advantage. What this human did, acting purely from compassion, is impossible for us. So you want to study him? Yeji asked. No, we want to learn from him. The Veltari collective has been searching for allies worthy of our respect. We have found only conquest targets and useful servants. But this human shows us that your species possesses something we thought was extinct in the galaxy. True heroism. Inspector Taehyun was frantically typing on his datapad. I need to contact my superiors. This is way beyond my authority. You may contact whoever you wish, Queen Velnara said. But understand this, Jiwon comes with us. It is not a request. And if we refuse? Dohyun asked quietly. Queen Velnara gestured toward the viewport where the massive Veltari ships waited. Then we take him anyway. But I would prefer not to start a war over this matter. Jiwon looked at his crew, his friends who had become family over the years. He thought about the 3 alien princesses who trusted him completely, and he thought about what Queen Velnara had said about courage and sacrifice. What exactly would happen if I came with you? He asked. You would undergo the Kethful ceremony, binding you formally as protector of my daughters. You would receive biological modifications to allow you to survive in our environments and communicate with our people. You would live in the royal palace on our homeworld and help raise my daughters to understand the value of compassion. For how long? Forever, Queen Velnara said simply. The Kethful bond is for life. Jiwon closed his eyes and tried to think. When he opened them again, the 3 young aliens were watching him through their tank walls. Their skin patterns had changed to soft, fleeting blues and greens. They were asking him to stay with them. I need some time to consider this, he said finally. Time is what we do not have, Commander Kextel interrupted. The ceremony must be performed before the royal larvae complete their current growth cycle. In your time measurement, 3 days, Queen Velnara nodded. You have until then to decide Jiwon of Earth. But know this, refuse the Kethval bond, and you will break something precious that cannot be repaired. She looked once more at her daughters, then turned and walked toward the airlock with her warriors following. 3 days, she said without looking back. Choose wisely. 2 days later, Jiwon found himself aboard the largest Veltari ship he had ever seen. The vessel was called the Living Crown, and it truly lived up to its name. The walls pulsed like heartbeats and the floors felt warm beneath his feet. Corridors changed shape as he walked through them, somehow knowing where he wanted to go. He hadn't come alone. After long discussions with his crew and several heated arguments with Inspector Taehyun, they had agreed that Hana would come as a cultural liaison and Do-hyun would serve as a communications expert. The colonial administration wanted to know everything about this first contact, and Ji-won's friends weren't going to let him face it alone. This place is incredible, Hana whispered as they followed a Veltari guide through the ship's main corridor. The walls around them showed moving patterns of light that seemed to tell stories. Their guide was a smaller Veltari named Kexmora, who served as what their translator called a wisdom keeper. Unlike the warriors they had met, Kexmora moved slowly and spoke in careful, measured tones. "The living crown has served the royal family for 800 years, Kexmora explained. "She grows larger and more complex with each generation of queens who have commanded her." "She?" Dohyun asked. "All our ships are female. They are born, not built. This one was grown from a seed the size of your fist." They reached a vast chamber that took Jiwon's breath away. The ceiling stretched up beyond sight and the walls curved in impossible spirals. In the center, 3 large pools held the royal daughters, now grown to the size of human teenagers. They had changed dramatically during the journey. Their wings were larger, their limbs longer, and their skin patterns more complex. Queen Velnara stood beside the pools, her crown structure glowing with soft golden light. "They have grown quickly since leaving your station," she said as Jiwon approached. "Being near their mother's presence speeds their development." Princess Zelnira raised her head from her pool and made musical sounds that the translator interpreted as, "Protector Jiwon." "You came back." "Hello, little one," Jiwon said, smiling despite his nervousness. "Not so little anymore," Queen Velnara observed. "In 2 days they will emerge from their pools as adults. The ceremony must happen before then." Jiwon looked at the 3 princesses. They had trusted him completely from the moment he saved them, and that trust hadn't wavered, but the thought of permanent biological changes, of leaving his human life behind forever, still frightened him. "Your Majesty, before I decide, I need to understand what this really means. What would happen to me? What would I become?" Queen Velnara gestured for him to follow her to a smaller chamber adjoining the pools. The room was filled with glowing crystals that seemed to pulse with information. "The Kethaval ceremony would change you in 3 ways, she began. "First, biological modifications to allow you to breathe our atmosphere, resist our diseases, and live for centuries instead of decades." "Centuries?" "Veltari live for 1,000 years or more. Your bond with my daughters must last their entire lives, not merely your brief human span." Jiwon felt dizzy at the thought. "What's the second change?" "Neural modifications to allow direct communication with Veltari minds. You would retain your human thoughts and memories, but also gain the ability to understand our complex social structures and emotional states." "And the third?" Queen Velnara hesitated. "A genetic marker that would identify you as Kethvalan to all Veltari. This cannot be undone. Even if you somehow left our space, any Veltari who encountered you would know what you are and treat you accordingly. Which means you would be revered and protected by our people, but also expected to act with the honor and wisdom of a royal guardian. There are responsibilities that come with this status." Hana stepped forward. "Your Majesty, what if Captain Jiwon agrees but wants to maintain some connection to his own people? Could he serve as an ambassador between our species?" Queen Velnara's compound eyes focused on Hana with new interest. "You speak of something that has not occurred to us. We have never had ambassadors. We conquer or we ignore. There is no middle path in our history." "Maybe it's time for a new path," Jiwon said. "Explain." Jiwon thought about everything he had learned over the past few days. "You said your people have lost the ability to act from pure compassion. But you also said you've been looking for worthy allies. What if the answer isn't conquest or isolation? What if it's cooperation?" Queen Velnara was quiet for a long moment. "Continue. I could be your first ambassador to humanity. Live part-time on your world, part-time in human space. Help build understanding between our peoples. Your daughters would learn about compassion and sacrifice from humans, and humans could learn about your advanced sciences and technologies. The royal daughters cannot leave Veltari space until they reach full maturity," Queen Velnara said. "That will take 50 years. Then I'll stay with them until then. But after that, let me help build bridges instead of walls." Kexmora, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "This one shows wisdom beyond his years, my queen. Perhaps the Kethval bond was meant to create more than just a guardian." Before Queen Velnara could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The walls flashed with urgent red patterns and the floor vibrated with what felt like weapon impacts. "We are under attack," Commander Kextal's voice echoed through the chamber. "The royal challengers have found us." "Who are the royal challengers?" Dohyun asked as they hurried back to the main pool chamber. "My sister's faction," Queen Velnara said grimly. They believe I'm unfit to rule because I have not produced a male heir. They seek to kill my daughters and claim the throne. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Through the transparent walls, G1 could see other Veltari vessels engaged in battle. Their weapons looked like living things, energy beams that writhed through space like serpents. How did they find us? Hana asked. They have been hunting my daughters since their birth, Queen Velnara explained. The transport ship that crashed was fleeing from them. Now they have tracked us here. Princess Zelnira emerged partially from her pool, her skin flashing with urgent yellow patterns. Mother, the attackers are trying to board us. How many ships? Queen Velnara demanded. 7 war vessels, Commander Kextel reported. We can defeat them, but not without risk to the royal larvae. Queen Velnara looked at her daughters, then at G1. The ceremony chamber is the most protected part of the ship. If they reach it, it can be sealed and defended until help arrives. How long would that take? G1 asked. Perhaps 6 hours. Another impact shook the ship, and this time they heard the shriek of metal being torn apart. Something had breached the outer hull. They're inside, Commander Kextal announced, moving toward the royal quarters. G1 looked at the 3 princesses in their pools. They were vulnerable, unable to defend themselves while in their current stage of development. The Veltari warriors were skilled, but they were outnumbered. The ceremony chamber, he said suddenly. Can you perform the Kethval ritual there? Yes, but then let's do it now. G1, you haven't decided yet, Hana protested. Yes, I have. He looked at his friend, then at Queen Velnara. Those children trusted me to save them once. I'm not going to let them down now. Queen Velnara stared at him. You would accept the bond in the middle of a battle without full consideration? Sometimes the best decisions are the ones you make without thinking too hard about them. The sound of fighting grew closer. Energy weapons fired in rapid bursts, and they could hear the clicking battle cries of Veltari warriors. Very well, Queen Velnara said. But know this. Once the ceremony begins, it cannot be stopped. Even if we all die here, you will be bound to my daughter's spirits for the rest of your extended life. I understand. Queen Velnara began issuing rapid orders. The 3 pools were lifted by mechanical arms and moved toward the ceremony chamber, a spherical room at the ship's heart. G1, Hana, and Dohyun followed, along with a small group of guards. The ceremony chamber was beautiful and terrifying. The walls were covered in living crystal formations that pulsed with rainbow light, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. Place your hand on the sacred crystal, Queen Velnara instructed, pointing to a large formation in the room's center. As soon as G1 touched it, pain shot through his entire body. But it wasn't just pain, it was change. He could feel his cells altering, his nervous system expanding, his very DNA being rewritten. The 3 princesses began singing in harmony, their voices creating patterns of sound that seemed to guide the transformation. Through the crystal, G1 could suddenly sense their thoughts and emotions, their gratitude, their trust, their desperate hope that he would survive what was happening to him. The chamber door exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, a group of Veltari warriors in black armor charged into the room. But these weren't Queen Velnara's people. Their armor was spiked and cruel, and their movements spoke of violence and hatred. Kill the larvae, their leader screamed. And the false queen's line. They raised weapons that looked like living spears, crackling with deadly energy. G1 tried to move, but the ceremony had him locked in place. The transformation was only half complete, and breaking contact with the crystal now would kill him. Protect the protector. 6 months had passed since the ceremony, and G1 still sometimes forgot that he wasn't entirely human anymore. He stood on the observation deck of the new research station, watching ships from both Earth and the Veltari Collective work together in space. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. The station hung in neutral space between the 2 civilizations, a joint venture that represented the first real cooperation between humans and Veltari. Half the structure was built using human engineering, clean lines, efficient design, and practical functionality. The other half was grown using Veltari biotechnology, flowing curves, living systems, and organic beauty. The diversity reports are encouraging, Princess Zelnira said, joining him at the viewing window. In her adult form, she was even more impressive than her mother, taller, with wings that sparkled like starlight, and eyes that held both ancient wisdom and youthful curiosity. What do the reports say? G1 asked. He had learned to read Veltari data displays, but Zelnira was faster at processing the information. 47 successful joint research projects in the first month, 63 cultural exchange programs, and most importantly, 0 incidents of violence or serious misunderstanding. Jiwan smiled. Your mother was right about humans and Veltari having things to learn from each other. She was right about many things, including you. The past 6 months had been the strangest period of Jiwan's life. The Cathville modifications had changed him in ways both subtle and dramatic. He could breathe the nitrogen-rich atmosphere that Veltari preferred. His lifespan had been extended to match theirs, and he could communicate directly with their bio-neural networks. But more than that, he had gained an intuitive understanding of their complex social structures and emotional patterns. In return, he had served as translator and guide for the growing number of humans who came to work with the Veltari. His own crew had been among the first volunteers. Minho now led a joint engineering team that was developing hybrid technologies. Hana directed the medical exchange program, learning Veltari healing techniques while teaching human surgical methods. Do-hyun managed the communications networks that kept both civilizations informed about their joint projects. Protector Ji-won, Princess Morkala called from across the observation deck. She was shorter than her sister but moved with the precise grace of a scientist. The Earth delegation has arrived for the trade negotiations. Ji-won nodded and made his way to the docking bay. These monthly meetings had become routine, but they were still important. Trust between the two species was growing, but it needed constant nurturing. The human delegation was led by Somin, a young diplomat who had quickly learned to appreciate Veltari directness. She emerged from the shuttle with her usual smile and confident stride. "Captain," she said, using his old title out of habit. "How are our hosts today?" "Eager to show off their latest discoveries," Ji-won replied. Princess Vexanda found something interesting in the Andromeda sector. More ancient ruins? Better, a planet with early-stage intelligent life. She wants to discuss first contact protocols. Salmon's eyes lit up. This was exactly the kind of challenge she lived for. Lead the way. The conference room was a perfect example of human Veltari cooperation. The table was grown from Veltari biomaterial but shaped according to human ergonomic principles. The walls displayed information in both human holographic projections and Veltari bioluminescent patterns. Princess Vexanda was waiting for them, along with Queen Velnara and several human advisors. At 20 years old by human standards, Vexanda was the youngest of the royal sisters but arguably the most adventurous. Her specialty was deep space exploration, and she had inherited her mother's love of discovering new things. Ambassador Somin, Queen Velnara said in greeting, "We have much to discuss." The presentation that followed would have been impossible without Ji-won serving as cultural translator. Princess Vexanda described a world called Kepler 438b, where a species of intelligent ocean dwellers had developed basic tool use and primitive communication. The Veltari exploration fleet had observed them from orbit for 3 months without making contact. In the past, we would have simply cataloged them and moved on, Queen Velnara explained, or possibly conquered them if they had resources we needed. But our time working with humans has taught us different approaches. "What do you propose?" Solman asked. "A joint first contact mission," Princess Vexanda said eagerly. "Veltari technology for observation and protection, human expertise in peaceful contact protocols." It was exactly the kind of project that the research station had been created for. Over the next 2 hours, they worked out the details. A small joint fleet would return to Kepler 438b, establish a research base, and begin careful, non-intrusive contact with the ocean civilization. "This is unprecedented," Soman said as the meeting concluded. "A year ago, the idea of working together on first contact would have been unthinkable. Many things that seemed impossible have become routine," Queen Velnara observed. She looked at Ji-won with something that might have been pride, including humans who sacrifice themselves for alien children. After the formal meetings ended, Ji-won found himself in the station's garden with the 3 princesses. It was one of his favorite places, a space where human flowering plants grew alongside Veltari crystal trees, creating beauty that neither species could have achieved alone. "Protector," Princess Zelnira said, "we have been thinking about something." "What's that?" "When we were children, you saved us because you saw creatures in need of help. You did not know we were royalty or that it would lead to all of this. She gestured toward the window, where human and Veltari ships continued their joint work. That's right. We have been wondering, Princess Morkala continued. What would have happened if you had known the consequences? Would you still have chosen to save us? It was a question that Jiwan had asked himself many times. His life had changed completely. He could never go back to being fully human, could never return to the simple life of a mining captain. He was bound to these three remarkable beings for the next 1,000 years. But as he looked at them, Zelnira with her diplomatic brilliance, Morkala with her scientific curiosity, and Vexanda with her explorer's spirit, he knew the answer. Yes, he said simply. I would do it again. Even knowing that you would have to leave your old life behind? Princess Vexanda asked. I didn't leave it behind. I expanded it. Jiwan looked out at the ships again where he could see human and Veltari crews working side by side. When I saved you three, I thought I was just helping some children. I had no idea I was helping to build a bridge between civilizations. The bridge was always possible, Princess Zelnira said thoughtfully. Both our species had the capacity for it, but it took someone willing to risk everything for strangers to show us the way. A new group of shuttles appeared on the horizon, the next wave of researchers and diplomats arriving for their rotation on the station. Among them, Jiwan could see the distinctive bioship design that meant more Veltari scientists were joining the project. You know what I think? He said to the three princesses. I think this is just the beginning. Princess Morkala tilted her head in the way that meant she was accessing data from the station's bioneural networks. The preliminary reports from 17 other species in this sector suggest you are correct. Word of our cooperation is spreading. Some are requesting meetings, Princess Vexanda added excitedly. They want to know how former enemies became allies. What do we tell them? Princess Zelnira asked. Jiwan thought about that day on the asteroid, when he had seen three small creatures in danger and acted without thinking about the consequences. He thought about the choice to enter a toxic atmosphere to save alien children he had never seen before. We tell them the truth, he said. Sometimes the most important decisions are the ones you make with your heart, instead of your head. Sometimes risking everything for someone else is exactly what the universe needs. In the distance, a human child from one of the research families was playing with a young Veltari, who was visiting with his scientist parent. They were laughing together, creating a sound that was both familiar and wonderfully alien. Look at that, Princess Vexanda said, pointing to the children. The next generation won't even remember when our peoples were strangers. That's the best gift we could give them, Jiwan said. A universe where cooperation is normal instead of impossible. As the day shift ended and the night shift began, representatives from both species worked together to keep the station running. Human engineers collaborated with Veltari biotechnicians. Human doctors learned from Veltari healers. Human artists worked with Veltari pattern weavers to create new forms of beauty. Jiwan made his rounds through the station, checking on various projects and resolving the small conflicts that arose when two very different species tried to work together. It was challenging work, but it was also the most rewarding thing he had ever done. When he finally returned to his quarters late that night, he found a message waiting from his old mining crew. Minho had sent a video report about their latest hybrid engine design. Hana included medical data showing how Veltari healing techniques were revolutionizing human medicine. Dohyun shared recordings of interspecies